Hello there everybody, it is me XfreezerBunny and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. So today we're back with another Newcrest build, and this time we're building a cat cafe. So I believe I've talked about this build in my other Redesign Newcrest build I did a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this is another community lot for Newcrest and I'm really excited because there's about only 3 more empty lots in Newcrest to fill up, and that is pretty much it for the series. I'm really excited to finally see some progress. I know a lot of you have been looking forward to the series' completion, so hopefully that'll be coming really soon. But yeah, this is a cat cafe. I'm really excited because I've been wanting to do one for the longest time. I thought about doing one ever since Cats and Dogs came out, but yeah, for some reason I never really ended up making one, so here we go. And for the record, I have actually been to a cat cafe myself. I will be talking more about that later on, but yeah, this build was definitely a fun one, I have to say, and I feel like this one is definitely more so on the interior as opposed to the exterior, because honestly the exterior is a little bit, basic, I guess. It's a modern building, which isn't something that we see a lot of in my Newcrest series, because I like to think of the Newcrest series as more of like a traditional Japanese inaka or like countryside location, but of course it's also a contemporary setting, I guess, so there's definitely going to be some modern buildings. There's going to be a mix of both modern and traditional, but yeah, this area of Newcrest was initially envisioned as more of like an old town, old street kind of location, and I'm still sticking through with that because I think this is probably going to be the only modern building other than the school. There is an empty lot next to this building, and I think I'm actually going to make that into a traditional community lot, which I'm not gonna spoil. Some of you probably already have an idea on what it's gonna be, but I'm not gonna spoil what it is in this video, I guess. I don't know, but all I'm gonna say is that I'm hoping that we get a hotel expansion pack at some point so that I can actually execute the lot that I want to for the lot next door to this one. So anyway, it's been a pretty busy week for me actually. How have you all been doing? I don't know why, but I think social media's been quite toxic. If you follow me on Twitter, you'd know that I have decided to kind of take a step back from just being on social media, because I find that I'm a lot more productive if I don't spend as much time on social media, looking for other people's validation. I'm sorry if I'm like dropping all of that on you guys unsuspectingly right now. I don't know, it's a really random topic to talk about at this point in the video, but yeah, those of you who follow me on Twitter probably already know that I decided to take a step back from being on Twitter and on Instagram specifically. I will be regularly updating you guys on there on the channel and stuff, but yeah, I'm gonna not be as active as I was, which is kind of weird for me because I don't think I've ever really been active on Twitter other than what I have been doing for the past like 2 years, but other than that I haven't really been that active on Twitter. And I think this is why it's all kind of like a shock to me, all of the toxicity on social media. I don't know if it's always been like this, but like I said, I've only been really active on Twitter since maybe 2018, 2017, when I started to make friends on the Sims community and I needed to catch up with them. And that's just basically the main reason why I had Twitter. Because other than that, I've only been really on Twitter to update people on what I was doing on the channel, but other than that, it's a great way to keep up with people on YouTube, my YouTuber friends basically, and also it was a great way to keep in touch with the sim gurus. But I noticed that recently they haven't been interacting that much with the community. Maybe it's just me, but yeah. So yeah, I don't know, I'm sorry to start off the video on a not so happy note, but I want to know how you're all doing. How are y'all coping with the pandemic? Have you all gotten vaccinated yet? I'm happy to say that my parents are fully vaccinated, so that's a relief at least, but I haven't been vaccinated yet. Unfortunately, we have already registered, but we're just waiting for our shots at this point. When I say we, I mean my brother and I, so that's, basically the gist of what I've been doing recently. Oh, actually, I do have a really funny story of when I first went to my first cat cafe. And this was way back, like maybe 2-3 years ago. But actually before that, I do have a really funny story. Well, it's funny for you guys probably, but not for me because it was kind of a hassle. But yeah, I was pretty busy this week actually. It's been a pretty busy week for me, work-wise, and also when it comes to my figure collecting. So as you all know, I've been recently getting into the hobby of collecting anime figures, and not too long ago I got a message from customs that one of my packages got held at customs, which is the most frustrating thing. And at this point, this happened to me 3 times already. And I think it's if you exceed a certain limit, like cost-wise for a package, they will hold your package and you will have to go to customs yourself, which is such a hassle. I had to take a day off work just to, do the whole customs thing, going there in person and having to, potentially pay custom fees and taxes and stuff like that. So here's the thing. When they hold your package at customs, they are still not sure if they're gonna charge you taxes. They're just gonna have to open the box there themselves, and they basically request your presence to be there to open the box. And it's funny because they called me twice. They held 2 of my packages for the past like 2-3 months, and the first time I actually went to customs, they were closed. And this is where my complaint comes in, because they do such a bad job at updating their website or like wherever, their Google Office page, whatever. They do such a bad job, because this could have saved me like an entire day of going to customs myself. Because usually they would probably, I'm not sure if this works like this, but based on like their text or like their email, they would usually send it to your nearest post office. But in my case, the nearest post office also happens to be the main customs office at the airport. So I had to go at the airport, and the first time I went, they were actually closed because apparently it was quarantine day. And by the way, in my country, we call a lockdown a quarantine, just to avoid confusion for you guys, but it's all of this crazy annoying thing that the government basically invents new classifications and stuff. It's really weird, and it's really hard to keep track. Most people are confused on what the quarantine situation is actually, but basically on the day I went, they were closed because quarantine. So imagine my frustration, having to take a day off work only to find out that they were closed. So that was pretty annoying. So I had to go a second day, and thankfully it all went well. The second time I went, it was raining, so it was kind of a hassle. Usually it would take me maybe 15 to 20 minutes to get to the airport's customs office, but because it was raining, it took me like 30 to 40 minutes to get there. It was really annoying, and I also had to fall in line because it was quite late when I got there, and there was already like a line. And since it was raining, I kind of had to go outside because that was where the line was at that point. And I kind of got a little bit wet by the rain, so that wasn't an enjoyable experience for me. I'm sorry if I'm just making this a whole therapy session at this point. It was really annoying, but I did manage to get my package, and one of them was actually Tales of Arise, the collector's edition. They didn't tax me, by the way, for any of my packages. They would just really needed my presence there for some reason to open the package to determine whether they were gonna tax me or not, which in my opinion is honestly a really inefficient way to handle things. But honestly, I'm just really happy that everyone there was really accommodating, and you know, everyone's like really positive and happy. I can imagine how frustrating it would be for people to go there and, you know, not to pay tax and just, I don't know, it's weird. I'm happy, don't get me wrong, I'm happy that they didn't charge me, because I would imagine, you know, the tax and, you know, customs fees for what I bought would have probably been really pricey anyway. So yeah, that's the whole ordeal. But yeah, it was pretty okay. I got a really rare figure, which is great. It was a figure from like a really old JRPG that I played way back in 2007. It was a really rare figure as well, which I actually won at an auction. So yeah, I'm committed basically to this whole figure collecting hobby. And yeah, Tales of Arise, I played the demo. I haven't actually played the main game yet because I'm just really busy. But yeah, looks pretty good so far. I'm really excited to simp for all of the new characters. But anyway, now that I've given you a little bit of a life update, let's talk about the build itself. So yeah, this is the interior, which in my opinion is really the highlight of this, you know, build. And I have been to a cat cafe. It wasn't this extravagant, by the way, but I did have to look at some inspiration. But luckily there were quite a few cat cafe vlogs on YouTube. I looked at CDog VA's one because yeah, at this point, you know, CDog VA and just the Trash Taste crew are just definitely like one of my favorite content creators on YouTube at this point, because I literally have their podcast on whenever I do my editings and stuff like that. They just have so much content and so much otaku content, which is really great. But yeah, I definitely looked at their cat cafe vlog for inspiration, and yeah, they're pretty cool. I noticed that a lot of cat cafes had this kind of like tree in the middle, so I tried to recreate that with, you know, the cat scratching post that looks like a branch. Luckily the tool mod works with that, so that's pretty cool. I've seen quite a few aesthetic Korean cat cafes as well, and I've also seen some builds on the community actually. When Cats and Dogs first came out, I believe Irrelevant Sims made a modern one, and Ashley from The Tides Changing also made a cat cafe from a while back as well. So I think my favorite part of the interior is probably like the coffee bar, because it has like the really nice ceiling type thing that I made. I really like that. There is this whole trend in cafe interior design of like really elaborate ceilings, and I've seen some friends of mine who actually design cafes literally spend hours just, you know, making all of these intricate ceiling pieces. I have actually designed a cafe myself, but it was a really small cafe for like, you know, one of my, I guess we can call it like a side gigs. So yeah, somebody asked me to do like an interior design for their cafe, which is actually a milk tea cafe. I still refuse to call it boba at this point, because that's just, I just really do not like the sound of it. And in my country we call it milk tea anyway, and I'm pretty sure most Southeast Asian countries that invented milk tea call them milk tea. So I don't know if boba is just an American thing. It honestly doesn't sound nice, and I'm sure the countries that invented milk tea just call it milk tea. Just, can we like please normalize just calling it milk tea in America, please? I've been to Taiwan, and they are credited as, you know, the country that made milk tea, and they just call it Taiwanese milk tea. And same with Thailand as well. They call it milk tea in Thailand. So I don't see why people in America just have to call it boba if people who literally invented a drink just call it milk tea. I don't know. So yeah, I feel really passionate about this, by the way. So but yeah, I designed a milk tea cafe way back in December, and they actually opened already like months ago. I already talked about this actually, and I believe my onsen build, I don't know, this was from like, oh actually I haven't done an onsen build yet. I did a Sento build, and that's where I talked about the whole gig and, you know, getting to meet with a client and stuff like that. For my own personal thing, this isn't for the whole office. Yeah, it's complicated, but yeah, that was fun. That was one of my first like independent projects, and it was really fun actually. And it feels amazing to have, you know, a real life location be built. You know, a real life location that you designed be actually built. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go there for the opening because, you know, travel restrictions and stuff. But yeah, I definitely pulled a lot of it into this build, specifically with like the technical stuff and like, you know, the spaces and all of that. Of course, this is a cat cafe, so I did set this build as a cafe, which is a real life actual in-game lot assignment, which I don't really see many builds of, because I feel like a lot of people just forget that cafes exist and they were added in with Get Together. But yeah, I have made one cafe. It was the Veronaville cafe, and that was way back in 2015, I believe, when, you know, Get Together first came out. And this lot also has the lot trait that makes it so that cats come here. I believe the lot trait is called a cat hangout. But yeah, I like to think of this as more of a, you know, cat themed cafe, because honestly, I think I've given up on pets at this point because they never really do what you want them to do. And as much as I would want this build to function as a real life cat cafe, they just aren't gonna do what I want them to do. So yeah, I'd like to think of this as more of a, you know, cat themed cafe. So I went pretty heavy on, you know, the cat themed decorations and stuff. I really enjoyed it actually. I consider myself as more of a dog lover than a cat lover, unfortunately, but I love animals in general. I grew up in the countryside and I was surrounded by a lot of, you know, animals, so that's that. I really love cats though, but I think I'm more of a dog lover myself. It's really funny because yeah, when I went to my very first cat cafe, of course they mostly had cats, but they had one dog as well, which I don't think was even part of like the whole cafe. I don't think the dog was the main attraction. I think the dog was just there because the owner had that dog and they just had the dog there, you know, because I think the owner was also there at that day when we came. But yeah, there's a cat cafe not too far from me. It's in Blue Bay. It's in a place called Blue Bay. If you live in Manila or like the south, you probably know where that is. It's near Mall of Asia. But yeah, I went there like maybe 2-3 years ago. I don't know if they're still around actually. I think they are. I'm not sure. They're probably closed because of the pandemic, but really funny story. First time I went to a cat cafe, my hand got scratched by a cat. And you know, the really awkward thing is, because I'm such an awkward boy, I just ignored it. I did not make a big deal out of it because I didn't want to like, I don't know, make it weird for the staff. I don't know. I didn't want to like embarrass the staff and make like a big deal of it. I mean, it was a scratch on my head, nothing too crazy. It was a tiny scratch as well, but it was quite deep. And I think I was bleeding a bit at some point, but yeah, I did not notify the staff whatsoever. It was really funny. And I tried to kind of like, you know, ignore it, like pretend like it didn't happen, because again, I didn't want to like make it weird for the staff. I don't know. This is just me being my usual awkward self. But yeah, you can literally just see, you know, my hand kind of bleeding and me kind of like trying my best to pretend like it wasn't there. But yeah, it was cute. But yeah, basically, if you go to a cat cafe, they gave you like these like sanitizers for like, you know, for like, I think it's more for like the cat's protection actually, not necessarily yours. But one thing that I did find interesting was that they had like a separate room for the cats. So, you know, if the cats don't want to interact with people, they can just go to the room and just stay there and just chill. So yeah, I did make sure to include one of those rooms. By the way, I love this main lobby area. There's like the sitting area where you can leave your shoes, which is a pretty standard thing for most Japanese like community lots, I guess. And those like shoe lockers are actually made of closets for kids, and I just basically rotated them. I did the exact same thing for my Sento build, which I did last year for the release of Snowy Escape. And this is the room I was talking to you guys about. This is like the cat private room, kind of. I'd like to call it like the cat nursery. So yeah, it's basically like a space for like the cats to, you know, chill and stay away, stay out of sight from people, especially if they don't want to be bothered. So yeah, there's a lot of cat toys in here. There's like outdoor stimulation, I guess, where it's meant to look like it has grass or whatever. You know, I like to think that this isn't the cat's permanent home. Like they have like a permanent like shelter, or like, you know, maybe the owner actually has more space at home and they just bring cats here, like, you know, maybe only for like a couple of days. You know, that's what I'd like to think. But yeah, it's really fun. I really love this build. It's definitely more of a fun, kind of quirky build, but I also kind of wanted it to feel like, you know, one of those like really aesthetic, you know, modern, traditional kind of look. Because yeah, the aesthetic I went with is definitely kind of a mix of modern and traditional. Lots of warm wood tones mixed in with some really modern kind of like brick accents, and also a mix of modern and traditional furnishings as well. You would see I use one of those new cuckoo clocks. Is it like a cuckoo clock? I don't know, grandfather clock. One of those clocks from Country Living. Oh sorry, it's Cottage Living. Yeah, that one had a lot of like really nice traditional but also kind of contemporary looking items, which is really great. It's definitely one of my more favorite packs, especially like, yeah, I think Cottage Living is probably one of my favorite recent packs. But yeah, anyway, speaking of recent Sims 4 updates, they've recently released a couple of days ago the two new kits, which is Fashion Street Kit and Incheon Arrivals, which is really amazing. I did say shortly before those kits were announced that I really liked them for, you know, I really like the kits that take us to different locations. I said this for the Moroccan themed kit, and I'm hoping that they would come out with, you know, more of a builder's kit, because I consider myself as more of a builder. I am barely in Create a Sim. I never really make Sims in Create a Sim anymore. I only just do makeovers of, you know, pre-existing Sims that I made years ago from when I did Let's Plays. Yeah, remember that time I did Let's Plays? But I feel like I'm definitely going to be spending a lot more time in cast now that I'm working on this project, because I'm going to be making Sims to go with the save file as well. But yeah, over here out back we do have a little shrine, and I like to think of it as kind of like a shrine to the Neko god, or like the cat god. Sorry if that was really cringy, but yeah, Neko is the Japanese word for cat. And this is what I love about Japan, and I feel like is something that a lot of people also really appreciate, is that you can just turn a random corner and there's like this really cultural or like historical site. And in this case, you know, most of this build was a modern building, but I still wanted to incorporate some of those traditional elements as well. But anyway, with that being said, I think that's going to be it for this build. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. You all have an awesome day. Enjoy the rest of the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.